Hey, welcome NFL football fans. It's time that again. It's time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production, and we're going to preview the 2018 NFL Draft, which is coming up directly. We'll see what's happening. We got the Cleveland Browns with, hey, they got two of the top 5 picks. They could not possibly screw this thing up this year, could they? We'll look into all that. We'll give you some tips and pointers. Won't bore you endlessly with players that you haven't watched and schools that you don't watch play, but we'll just give you the down and dirty, the short, sweet, and hit it hard and out, and just a good update for you. But as you know, I do not work alone here. I do enlist the help of the very, very best. So here he is, the man that many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L Sports, and if not, you should be. He has some real enlightenment out there for everybody. A proud graduate of Rutgers University and my favorite East Coast intellectual, none other than Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening out there, man?
Charles, it's great to be back after our spring break of sorts. I don't know what happened. It seemed like just yesterday we were going over the Super Bowl and free agency, and here we are again at everyone's favorite time of the year, the greatest real reality TV show known to man, the NFL Draft. So good to be back.
Yeah, there we go. And we got to give an Inside Sports welcome to Jada Claire Barkley. That is the first child of Penn State running back Saquon Barkley, who's expected to factor heavily in the upcoming draft here. So welcome, Jada, to the world. Your daddy's about to be a superstar, we think. The only question is, where might he play?
Yes, and that's why, as much as we love the NFL Draft, I must say the team I pull for is picking second. And I was talking about this with my dad, a lifelong New York Giants fan, and I almost feel like I just wanted to get here. It's not for nervousness or anticipation. Frankly, I'm just sick of all the rumors. You want to talk about stories. There was one that emerged today from Adam Schefter at ESPN that the Browns still say Baker Mayfield's in play for number 1. There have been other reports that Josh Allen could be number 1. The Giants GM Dave Gettleman has never met a camera he doesn't not like. I mean, the rumors abound on who they're going to pick, whether it's Barkley, Chubb, Darnold if he falls. I don't know. But at this point, between that and all the mock drafts from the Mel Kiper Juniors of the world, I just wanted to get here already. It's almost like it's anticlimactic. I mean, at this rate, with all the predictions, CNBC even thinks this is embarrassing.
Yeah, there you go. And for those of you not in the know, maybe you're living under a rock or in a cave or something, but the first 5 picks of the draft, that's where all the action happens. We've got the Cleveland Browns at number 1, the New York Giants at number 2, the New York Jets at number 3, the Cleveland Browns again at number 4, and then the Denver Broncos at number 5. So you got to wonder if the Browns, what are they going to do? Remember, they chose high last year, took DeShone Kizer, brought him into a 1-15 team. That DeShone Kizer experiment lasted 1 season, and he's now been shipped out. So now they're ready to pick another quarterback, I think, or maybe take Saquon Barkley with the first overall pick, and then maybe get themselves a quarterback at number 4, which would kind of seem to make sense if they want to get Barkley there. They've got 2 good receivers, because they got Josh Gordon, they got Jarvis Landry. All they need is someone to get them the ball. So, yeah, what in the world are they going to do? Or are they going to trade one of the picks? What will they do? And now, one thing, remember, with taking these running backs, and something that someone actually enlightened me to was you got to look at what kind of system they played in college. And this was actually Anthony Barbarin, who does our NBA reporting for Inside Sports. And he said one of the reasons he looked at when Richardson was playing, and he said he would not have drafted him high, because when you look at how dominant that Alabama offensive line was, Richardson was always 4 or 5 yards up the field before he was even touched. Then you get to the NFL, and that's when you find out the guy really can't even run through arm tackles by the defensive lineman. So you got to be careful when it comes to taking running backs. You got to break down that film, and you really got to look at what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you look on the flip side, another Alabama running back, well, he later transferred to Tennessee, who ended up being phenomenal this past year, was Alvin Kamara with the Saints. And I mean, we know Alabama's got an offensive line that will put most NFL teams to shame, but look, he was a perfect fit for what Sean Payton runs down there. Even you look like a Kareem Hunt, who was a later round pick, not a first rounder. I believe he was a 2nd or 3rd rounder. It fits the Chiefs system well. So completely agree with that. That said, I think Saquon Barkley is one of these running backs like an Ezekiel Elliott, who I think could fit any sort of system. I mean, he's really that athletic. A lot of guys have come out. I mean, Sean Payton even came out and said it's the best running back prospect he's seen in 25 years. But it was someone like a Leonard Fournette last year. He did great with the Jaguars, but that's the system. They have a big, bruising offensive line. They're going to try and not have Blake Bortles lose the game for him. He's perfect fit for Jacksonville. Now, would he work well in Cleveland? Well, I don't know who would work well in Cleveland, but now would he be more of an up-tempo type? Let's say the Rams, the type of offense they play. Do you think Fournette would fit for that? Probably not. That's why Gurley's a better match. So completely agree with you. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier. A lot of these scouting reports, mock drafts, they're going off of what they feel are the top picks in order, but you've got to fit your system. That's the key here. And I think that's something Cleveland hasn't figured out since re-entering the league in 1999.
Well, Cleveland, the problem is, you say fit their system. What is Cleveland's system exactly? But first, you got to have a system in place that you can fit them into, as opposed to every year looking at what you have and say, well, what are we going to do with all this? Are we going to want to run? Are we going to throw? Or what are we going to do? And Cleveland, I think that's when, once you establish an identity, then you can draft players around that. Not only that, but players get in the mindset even before they get to camp. When you get drafted to a team that has an established identity, you know what your role is going to be on that team, and you know what's expected of you. Just, I could go down the list and name, the Patriots, the Steelers, things like that, established organizations. Anyone who gets drafted as a defense on the defensive line or as a linebacker for the Steelers, do you have any doubt as to what your job is going to be when you get there? Absolutely not. It's been established for the last 40 years.
Yeah, and ultimately, like most organizations in this country, not just professional sports, it starts from the top down. And look how much turnover the Browns have had, not only in the coaching ranks, but general manager. It's like the theme, the mantra changes. What does it turnover every 2 to 3 years? And now you've got John Dorsey's in charge there in Cleveland, and he's a true football man and worked with the Chiefs. But he's inheriting a coach, Hugh Jackson, who we haven't played one game in the season. There's already talk he may not last to 2019. So you're going to draft someone that's a Hugh Jackson quarterback, or are you going to draft, is John Dorsey going to draft the guy he thinks is the best quarterback that can play across any system? I mean, I don't know. I didn't really. I look back to that Elway and Marino draft in 1983 with all those quarterbacks. I don't know about you. Maybe I'm just the angry old guy next door, but it seemed like it was a lot simpler then. There was this paralysis of sorts by overanalysis nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. And by the way, remember Baker Mayfield out of Oklahoma? I think he's a great story, though, a walk-on who winds up making the team, becoming a legend for that team, winning the Heisman. Unfortunately, a couple of brushes with the law, nothing I'd say truly egregious, but, a little drunken, disorderly, and then a little bit of misconduct on the field. But I don't know. He's one of those, you may not want to take a chance on him. You may want to, but he could wind up being an excellent NFL quarterback. And then, of course, the more, the better choices, or the safer choices, of course, you got Josh Rosen out of UCLA, Sam Darnold out of SC, and Josh Allen out of Wyoming. Josh Allen may be the best of those prospects. We don't know. We never know what these quarterbacks are going to do when they finally get to the NFL. Let me just say, Chris, the Cleveland Browns call you up tomorrow, which they might. I think your opinion is actually as good or better than most people they have in the organization. They say, Mr. Lardieri, we've got 2 of the first 4 picks, and we've got the number 1 overall. What in the world should we do? We're tired of embarrassing ourselves year after year in the NFL draft. What exactly would you say to them?
Well, I'm glad they're going to call me, because I did a mock draft of sorts, and we can go through this. I just did it for the first few teams. My mock draft. So for the Cleveland Browns, I predict they will not pick Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield. I can't tell you who they will pick. I'll tell you they shouldn't pick either of those, mainly because I think there's so much rumor and buzz and spin out there that they're taking one of those guys. If they're that wishy-washy on who they're taking, either John Dorsey's a great poker player or they're completely confused. The way I look at it, if they need a quarterback, they've got to take the guy they feel the most convinced about. The conventional wisdom is Sam Darnold, the system he played with at USC. I know the knock on him is turnovers and things like that, but I do think if you're going to go quarterback for Cleveland, I think he's the least riskiest of all of them. In terms of all the quarterbacks, living here in Southern California, I watch a lot of him and and Josh Rosen. And I think it's funny. Josh Rosen's got an excellent arm. He looks like a pro quarterback. The knock on him now is, he doesn't get along with his teammates. He has an attitude. Sounds to me like Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers. They should probably stay away from Josh Rosen, right? Sarcasm aside, I think the one thing you need to be concerned about with Rosen is concussion. So of the four, I think he might fall. That said, if he stays healthy, I think he's got the most upside and probably would have this shorter learning curve of the four quarterbacks. But I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, if they really sitting at 1 and 4, they're almost in an enviable position because they could take a quarterback at 1. If they don't feel convinced about any of them or they like them, they could wait till 4. They could go get a Barkley at 1 if they feel he's a transcendent running back. And armchair GM that I am, they need to pick the quarterback they're most convinced about at 1. And then at 4, they're going to have their pick where, in a perfect world, Barkley slides to them. I don't think he gets that far. But if not, Bradley Chubb, the defensive end from North Carolina State. And you do like the Eagles have done and the Giants did a number of years back. You build on that defensive line. You bookend pass rushers. That's how you stop teams. That's how you neutralize the opposing quarterback. And eventually that's how you win Super Bowls. But I won't get ahead of myself in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'd see, honestly, I would tell them to go ahead and take Barkley number 1 overall. And of the quarterbacks, let's look at it with Rosen, with Allen, with Darnold, with Mayfield. I think it's kind of a mixed bag. No one's sure which one of them will truly be successful at that next level. I would go ahead and take Barkley at number 1, and then at number 4, I would take the best quarterback that we feel we have left on the board. Now, you already have Tyrod Taylor there, who's he's serviceable, let's just say. But what would he do with a good running back? And then you got 2 good receivers already. So looks like your offense may be able to actually do something there in Cleveland. So I would go ahead, Barkley first, and then take whichever quarterback is left, maybe Mayfield, maybe Allen, just depends on who it is. And then if it turns out that there's some kind of scuttlebutt and Barkley really does not want to go to Cleveland, which, there were rumors about that, then those rumors were dispelled. And so he really wants to actually go to New York or something. I'm sure that you could find, you could get some usable parts from the Giants and then build that way. So I think with taking Barkley number 1, they can't really go wrong. I mean, take the best player available in the draft. I think drafting for position is one thing, but don't pass over the best player available just because you desperately need someone to play a different position. When you got a chance with Barkley, if he may turn out to be the real deal, go ahead, take Barkley first, and then get a quarterback with the number 4 pick.
Yeah, and the thing with the Browns is it's not like they're 5 pieces away. They need help across the board. They need depth. They need skilled players. Like you said, they've got wide receivers. I don't really see a glaring hole there. But other than that, can they really go wrong with picking whatever they view the best available position player being? I think not. So John Dorsey being a football man, I'm going to have a little bit of optimism with him there and hope that he's just leaking a lot of stuff to the Schefters of the world and hoping someone bites on the number 1 pick and he can trade down. But really, I mean, this is one of the few years. Look at last year, even Myles Garrett, everyone knew was going to be number 1 weeks before the draft. So this is really a wide open, fascinating draft ahead of us.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun. And then when we look at existing players who, are existing NFLers with a little bit of drama, I guess Gronk, now he has sat down with his coach Belichick. That's Rob Gronkowski for all of those of you who are not familiar with Gronk as I am. But he's going to come back and play. There's speculation he may retire, may go into making action movies. I could just see Rob Gronkowski and John Cena in a movie together. I think that would be just fantastic. A lot of pyrotechnics, cars going over cliffs and unbelievable stunts. But Julio Jones, I guess now wide receiver for Atlanta, still in his prime, but I guess he's getting a little bit disgruntled. It looks like they may be getting a divorce. That'll put him out on the open market. Des Bryant just got cut a little while ago, so he may be out there. And now the last thing I'm hearing is with your beloved New York Giants, Odell Beckham Jr., they want him to remain a Giant forever.
Yeah, really can't keep track of this soap opera. Just a few weeks ago, Gettleman and Shermer made it sound like if he wasn't showing up to OTAs, he'd be persona non grata. The rumors started he was coming to the Rams, and then next thing you know, Brandon Cooks gets traded from New England out here, and everything's perfect again in the Meadowlands. So I don't know what to believe, but if you're the Giants, You don't trade him while you've got him under contract at a really, well, we can talk about the collective bargaining agreement all we want, but a ridiculously low price for a receiver of his caliber. Ride it out while you can. I don't know where this came from or why, or if Dave Gettleman, just found another camera he liked to get in front of that day at the owners' meetings. But look, I really think it's a non-issue. The bigger problem, besides the contract extension talks, which will probably linger all season, is he healthy? I mean, he hurt his ankle in preseason, snapped his leg in week 5. Is he going to be the same receiver? I think that's the bigger question.
Right, that's true, and that all remains to be seen. So, we'll just let the drama unfold, and of course, we'll be back next week to do our post-draft show, see how close we came, see what kind of interesting moves all these teams made. And we got to remember too, one thing that is looming. It seems like it was just yesterday that it happened, but remember the the NFL CBA is going to be expiring here in a couple of years. So we're going to have that to go through. So right now, while it's happier times, we're going to go ahead and talk about the draft and all these other good things. But what do you think, though? I think that's about it for the draft. Before we're going to go ahead and check out of here in a minute. But Mr. Lardieri, I always give you a minute because I love hearing what you've got to say. And I know the fans want to hear it. What kind of enlightenment have you got for the sports world today?
Well, sure. My fantasy football expertise, I put that in quotes, is kind of on hiatus until the summer months when people will be preparing for their draft. So I figure that gives me the qualifications to be a draft expert, right, and give you some sort of mock draft or prediction. So just running through picks 2 through 5 here. The Giants, I think they will not take Sam Darnold or Bradley Chubb. Who they will take, I don't know. I'm just going to go off of what I don't think will happen because these are rumors that have been beaten into the ground. The Jets, I don't see them taking Baker Mayfield. If I was to go out on a limb, I'd say if Josh Rosen's there, I think he's the fit. The Browns, there was a rumor last week, and we talked about this offline, that the Browns, because they're so bad at picking quarterbacks, would pick 2 quarterbacks and hope one of them panned out.
Right.
The dumbest move I've heard since, I don't know, solar ice cubes, perhaps. I really can't keep track.
Since drafting Tim Couch #1.
Well, at least it was just 1 quarterback they picked, so I got to give them a little bit of a pass there. They didn't pick 2 in the first round there. And then Broncos, we know LA wants a quarterback. It'll be interesting to see who slides there. In terms of players, look, my son watches way more college football than me. I bounce ideas and names off him, and he gives me his scouting report. And just from watching some of the bowl games, the playoffs, late season games, and this is not going to be earth-shattering, but the guys that I like that I thought were pro-ready, you look at Roquan Smith, a linebacker from Georgia. Guy was all over the field in the semifinals and the championship game. I think some team's going to be happy to get him. Their 2 running backs, Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb, ironically the cousin of Bradley Chubb. It's a little trivia question there for your NFL draft Knicks. I think those are guys that could potentially fall later, first, second round, and teams would be happy to have them. You talk about picking a running back that high first when they turn over so just randomly in this league. I think those are 2 guys to keep your eyes on. And then someone we forgot about, the Heisman Trophy winner before Baker Mayfield's in this draft, and that's Lamar Jackson from Louisville.
Yes.
And he's been getting a lot of flack in the media because he hired his mom as his agent. And look, I don't know what's wrong with that. There's some guys that negotiate their own contracts, but I'll tell you what, the conspiracy theorist in me thinks that the hoodie, Bill Belichick, I think he somehow in his evil ways and his mental telepathy, after shipping Jimmy Garoppolo out of town, he got to working a lot of negative stories out there about Lamar Jackson. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots take a chance on this guy. Got nothing to substantiate it with, but just smells to me like there's a team out there that wants him and wants him to fall, Aaron Rodgers style, into the latter portion of the first round. Guy's a tremendous athlete, and after what happened with Deshaun Watson last year, Cleveland Browns, you paying attention? I think he could be one of those guys that really would make a team that's decent or a contender very happy, especially if they've got the time to groom him. So that's what I've got there draft-wise. Calvin Ridley from Alabama, really solid wide receiver. I mean, These are a lot of chalk plays. But what I feel is that since the combine, there are a lot of these obscure names and back and forth with the quarterbacks, that these are guys who, a good hard and fast rule. If you're good in college and you got the physical tools and you did this for a number of years, I think that bodes well for you in the NFL. So Look, remember, the Rams picked Todd Gurley coming off a knee injury. Everyone thought he was nuts. The guy's one of the best running backs in football. So that's kind of my scouting theory, for better or worse. But I don't know if you've got any blue chippers deep in the 8th round, Mike Mayock style. That's not my cup of tea. But these are just guys I'd like to see. I think I'd be interested to see where they wind up come Thursday, Friday.
Well, Lamar Jackson, that's the thing is, traditionally these great college athletes who play quarterback, it's because they pretty much have everyone outclassed on the field. Then all of a sudden you get to the NFL, you're not quicker than all the outside linebackers like you were in college, and basically everything slows down, the field closes in on you, and you're not able to make those plays. So, Lamar Jackson may be a find. I think there's no way in the world that Cleveland takes a chance on him because of, they've at least got, it's one thing if you screw up these top two draft picks you have, but it's another thing to take a mighty swing and a miss on one of them because of some kind of a hunch you had. And I think with this, they've got to take, if not getting Barkley at number 1 and then taking one of these known blue chip quarterbacks here at number 4, they've got to do that because they've got to save face. You can blow this draft, but you can't do it and make these crazy moves, which would be if Lamar Jackson did not pan out and they took him at number 1 or number 4 overall. It would be like that was a crazy move. I think they have to save face here. Everybody's seeing them fall on their faces with number 1 draft picks year after year after year. I mean, last year they got the wrong Deshaun. At least they got the first name right. They just wanted Watson instead of Kaiser. They got Kaiser, and Kaiser is now, where's he, in Green Bay? Is that where he is? Yeah.
Green Bay. Yeah,
I don't know. You draft Kaiser to a 1-15 team. You go 0-16, and then the Deshaun Kaiser experiment is all of a sudden over. I don't know if he actually got a fair shot to do anything. And that was the other thing when you said about drafting 2 quarterbacks or even drafting 1. Well, what is the window? If you're Cleveland, what is the window you allow for a quarterback to develop, given the pieces that you have around you?
No one knows. Look, he could have offensive coordinator next year, whoever that quarterback is. So, yeah, I don't think they're crazy enough to take it. I'll just throw 2 other teams out there. A team like Baltimore or Cincinnati, I could see them drafting him. They've got an overpaid quarterback in both and be with the team much longer. He sits for a year, he learns. They take a chance on him if they believe in him. Jackson's not a guy like that's going to go to the Jets or the Broncos. Or the Broncos have Keenum, but I just don't think he'd be picked that high. But a team that needs a quarterback now is not going to take him. But I think a trend you'll see here is with Jimmy Garoppolo, and teams will say, oh, you got to let a guy sit and he's going to learn under your system and develop. Yeah, it's partially true. It does work that way. The guy was learning under one of the best coaches ever and one of the best quarterbacks ever. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a curve there. He learned but guy was learning from 2 of the best in their respective fields. So it's all relative.
There you go, folks. Okay, so we'll see how all this unfolds. Remember, you can follow on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at Chris L Sports. And by the way, Instagram, you can go to Inside Sports TV. And you can follow us there. Also, the website is officialinsidesports.com. And for all of you NHL fans, you may notice if you're watching on YouTube, I got a little bit of growth. This is my playoff beard. We also have another podcast called Talkin' Hockey. We're going to be covering through the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you can find that on Podbean, just like Bean Pod, but reverse Podbean. Download that app on your smartphone. You can take us with you wherever you go. Just go to Inside Sports, and everything will be lined up there, whether you want hockey, you want football, whatever you want, it's right there. Just pick it, choose it, and you can just listen to it while you're at work or jogging or whatever. So for Mr. Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. saying thank you for watching. We'll see everybody next week. Enjoy the draft.